Have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever been treated as if you were worthless and just because you were in the wrong place? So get ready. What you're going to see now is going to give you goosebumps. It was supposed to be just another ordinary shift. One afternoon at a luxury store in the heart of New York, where windows shined brighter than the customers' fake smiles. And there she was, Camilla, a simple, dedicated employee who fought every day to keep her job and support her sick mother. Camilla knew that in that place, appearance was everything. But she didn't have expensive handbags or designer makeup. All he had on his face was tiredness and hope for better days. That day, a customer came into the store. High heels, sunglasses, expensive perfume, and overflowing arrogance. He looked at Camilla as if he were looking at something dirty. All it took was a good afternoon from the employee for the woman to roll her eyes. "Do you work here? Are you sure? I thought it was someone." "Lost?" The sentence cut the air like a razor. Other attendants pretended not to hear, but whoever was there heard everything. The client didn't stop. "Don't touch my pieces, okay? You might even stain them." Camilla lowered her eyes. He swallowed dryly. He tried to smile, he tried not to cry, but my chest hurt. And it was at that moment that something completely unexpected happened. A woman who until then had just been observing walked slowly to the center of the store. Nobody imagined who it was. Hair down, simple clothes, nothing flashy, but the eyes had a strength that mesmerized. When she took off her sunglasses, the shock was instantaneous. Yes, it was her, Oprah Winfrey. The entire store stopped. Even the manager left the office. If you have ever felt that the humiliated would one day be exalted, write here in the comments, "I believe," or better yet, say in the comments what you would do if you witnessed such a scene. Silence took over the environment. All eyes turned to Oprah, as if time had stopped for a few seconds. The arrogant customer, who until then felt like she owned the place, froze. He tried to hide his nervousness, straightened his hair, faked a forced smile, but it was already too late. Oprah faced the situation with a serenity that was intimidating. She didn't need to raise her voice. He just walked towards Camilla, the employee who was still trying to understand if this was real. And it was there, in front of everyone, that something powerful happened. With a calm but presence-filled gesture, Oprah took Camilla's hands, looked into her eyes and said, "You deserve to be here. You have more value than any clothes in this store." At that moment, the store, previously noisy and full of ostentation, fell into a profound silence. Those words seemed to echo everywhere. The client began to mumble justifications, tried to laugh, said she was just joking, but no one laughed. The embarrassment was visible. The contempt that previously came from above now turned against her. Camilla, shaking, tried to say something, but Oprah gently interrupted her. "Don't apologize for existing. You shine, and no one has the right to erase that." This wasn't just a defense. It was a time for repair, an act of courage in the face of public humiliation. The manager approached, trying to defuse the situation, offering a generic apology. But Oprah was blunt. "This store needs more people like her, and less like you pretend to be." The impact was so great that some customers left silently, embarrassed. Others discreetly began to applaud. It was as if, for a brief moment, the world had rediscovered what it was most lacking: empathy. The store looked like a set straight out of a luxury movie. Showcases glittered with jewelry and accessories that cost more than many earn in months of work. The white marble floor reflected the strategic lights, creating an almost theatrical glow. Leather furniture, the scent of imported perfume in the air, and a classic soundtrack completed the environment that didn't seem made for everyone, only for those who could belong to that world. And it was in this universe of appearances that Camilla tried to go unnoticed. His uniform was impeccable, even if a little worn. The badge with his name crookedly in his pocket seemed to carry all the weight of someone who woke up at 5 a.m. and faced 2 crowded buses to get there. Always quiet, always polite. She worked hard, but was treated as invisible. Colleagues? Elegant, trained to smile with customers and turn away from simpler employees. Camilla was not part of the chosen ones. It wasn't called for coffee with others. She was not praised in meetings, but she continued every day, with faith, doing the best she could, believing that one day perhaps someone would see who she really was. And it was on one of those ordinary days that everything began to change. The store door opened with a subtle sound, but it seemed to announce the arrival of someone important. And indeed it was. High heels echoed across the marble. The woman who entered was carrying a shiny designer bag, sunglasses covering half her face, and a sharp look in her eyes. She analyzed the environment as if everything there was rightfully hers, and when he looked at Camilla, he made a point of demonstrating his contempt with a mocking smile and a look from top to bottom that needed no words, an expression of judgment as if to say, "You don't belong here." It was one of those moments when time slows down. Camilla, even though she was used to looks like that, felt her stomach turn. But as always, he took a deep breath and continued doing what he needed. Anyone who has ever experienced something like this knows it's like swallowing a scream stuck in your throat. Camilla barely had time to react when the woman uttered the first sentence, dry as a slap in the face. "You shouldn't even be here." He said it loud and clear, with that intonation calculated to hurt. And it hurt. The environment, previously sophisticated and artificially welcoming, became heavy. The customer continued, "Don't touch my purchases with those hands. They look dirty." It cut through the air like a blade. Camilla tried to smile, a shaky smile, almost an automatic reflex of someone who has learned not to fight back. But her teary eyes revealed what her heart couldn't hide. The woman's words echoed in the hall like a silent poison. The other attendants, so smiling minutes before, now looked away, hid behind hangers or pretended to tidy shop windows. The manager, he disappeared as he always did when the problem was with someone below. Camilla took a deep breath. She couldn't cry there. "I knew that if I let the tears escape, I might not even finish the shift." He swallowed the pain, lowered his head, and, as he did every day, tried to maintain his dignity. But that moment was different. There was something deeper in that contempt, a deliberate attempt to diminish, to erase its presence. The client didn't stop. He would pick up a piece and say, "This is too fine for someone like you." And with each sentence, he seemed to feed on the feeling of power. It was as if she wanted to prove something to a silent audience. And the store watched, without a sound, without an intervention. Camilla was just one of many who had already gone through that, and for many there, she was easily replaceable. But that day, she wasn't as alone as she seemed. In the most discreet corner of the store, between racks of expensive dresses and shiny mirrors, a woman remained in absolute silence. He wore simple, discreet clothes, nothing flashy. She looked like just another regular customer, perhaps looking at a window. But there was something in her eyes, a deep, intense, almost restless glow. Nobody noticed her presence until then. No attendant approached, no security guard paid attention. After all, she showed no obvious signs of wealth, nor did she care. That's how she liked to be among people without masks. But inside her at that moment something boiled. Every cruel word that came out of that arrogant customer's mouth made his chest tighten. The tension was almost physical. The simple woman who observed everything with attentive eyes was none other than Oprah Winfrey. She didn't need to hear much to understand everything. The employee's posture, the pleading look, the pain contained in silence. Oprah had already been in that place, not in that store, but in that role. I knew what it was like to be judged, underestimated, ignored, and because of that, every second of that scene seemed to take away a memory from her, an old wound, but still alive. While everyone was silent, she absorbed every detail. The client's look, full of arrogance, the muffled laughter of some employees, the calculated indifference of others, but mainly the look of the young employee, that look of someone who is on the verge of collapse, but is still trying to hold on. It was at that exact moment that Oprah decided she wasn't going to leave without doing something, not just to console, not just to correct, but to show definitively that true greatness lies in the courage to act when everyone is silent. If you believe that moments like these reveal who we really are, write here in the comments. Greatness is in the details. Let's show that there are still people who see the value that many ignore. Oprah took the first step, slowly, with the calm of someone carrying a strength that doesn't need to be shouted. His walk was serene, but there was a firmness in his presence that began to attract attention. One attendant looked, then another. A security guard frowned, and then, like a domino effect, everyone's eyes turned to her, but still no one believed it. "Is that really her?" someone muttered near the register. Doubt hung in the air for seconds, seconds that felt like minutes. When Oprah finally positioned herself between Camilla and the client, time seemed to freeze. The people there knew they were about to witness something that doesn't happen every day. Without changing her tone of voice, without lifting a finger, Oprah faced her client with a calmness that was more intimidating than any scream. Then, with a slight smile on the corner of his lips and a firm look in his eyes, he said, "Do you know what offends me? The lack of humanity." The sentence, although said sweetly, was a direct blow. The client, who until seconds before felt in control of the situation, instantly turned pale. He tried to react, mumbling something like, "I didn't mean," or "It was just a misunderstanding." But Oprah didn't give him a chance. She turned to Camilla, who was speechless, with her eyes wide and her hands shaking, and did something that no one there would ever forget. He held the employee's hand gently, as if holding something precious. He looked deep into her eyes and said in the same voice that has moved crowds around the world, "You are valuable. Never forget that." It was at that moment that silence turned to astonishment. What used to be just another cold, ordinary afternoon in a luxury store became an event, a moment that challenged invisible hierarchies and broke carefully constructed masks. The client now was nothing more than a portrait of embarrassment, but there the one who really shined was Camilla. Oprah didn't wait for a more appropriate moment, nor did she ask anyone for permission. She was the moment. With everyone paying attention, still in shock at what they had just witnessed, she turned back to Camilla, who was trying to hold back her tears, still not understanding if it was a dream. Oprah, with the calmness of someone who knows exactly what she is doing, asked her name. "Camila, Camila Oliveira," she said, almost whispering. Oprah smiled, nodded, and then, as naturally as a person orders a coffee, said loudly, "Camila, from today onwards, you will work with me." The impact was immediate. A stunned silence swept the store for a second, and soon after, a wave of spontaneous applause took over the place. Employees who minutes before had pretended not to see were now clapping their hands with wide eyes, perhaps trying to assuage the guilt of their omission. Customers who followed the scene, cell phones in hand, recorded everything with the certainty that they were witnessing something that you don't see every day. The store manager, visibly nervous, approached with a forced smile, trying to reverse the situation with rehearsed words such as, "This does not represent our policy," or "We are deeply sorry." But Oprah interrupted her before she could even finish. He looked into her eyes and said firmly, "Empathy can't be taught with a uniform. It can be taught with your heart." The words echoed louder than any corporate speech. It was as if each sentence was a mirror facing the soul of everyone there. Camilla was shaking. The penny hadn't dropped yet. She didn't know whether to smile, whether to cry, whether to be grateful. But at that moment, something inside her transformed. It was as if, after years of being invisible, she had finally been seen and valued by those who truly understand what humanity is. A few days after that episode that went viral on the networks and moved millions of people around the world, Camilla arrived in a place she never imagined stepping into, Oprah's studios. Her heart was beating fast, her hands were sweating cold, but something inside her was already different. For the first time in a long time, she walked with her head held high without the burden of invisibility. As soon as she entered, she was greeted with sincere hugs and genuine smiles, the exact opposite of the cold and impersonal environment of the luxury store where she had been humiliated. There, she wasn't just another one. She was someone who had been seen, welcomed, and recognized, and that changes everything. Oprah made a point of personally introducing her to the team. He said proudly, "This is Camilla, and she is with us because the world needs people like her." It wasn't just a new job, it was a mission. Camilla became part of a social impact project led by Oprah, who visited communities, shelters, and schools, sharing stories of overcoming and faith. Your role? Sharing her experience, inspiring people who, like her, thought they didn't have a voice. Camilla, the employee who was judged by her appearance, now stood on stages to tell how everything had changed. She has become a silent symbol of something powerful, the importance of never taking anyone for granted. And it wasn't just the world around her that had changed. Inside, Camilla was also flourishing. That young woman who used to hide behind shelves was now genuinely smiling. It was no longer the forced smile for demanding customers. It was the smile of someone who knows they have value. A value that goes beyond the badge, beyond the clothes, beyond what you see. If this transformation touched your heart, comment below. Dignity can't be bought, it can be earned. Let's spread this message and show that every story has value. This story goes far beyond a famous celebrity making a beautiful move. It forces us to stop, take a deep breath and reflect on something much deeper. How many times have we ourselves been silent witnesses to injustices like this? How many Camilas are right now behind a counter with a tired smile, trying to appear strong while holding back? Tears so as not to lose their jobs. And worse, how many Oprahs and people with power, empathy, influence, or simply sensitivity go through these situations every day, but don't see, don't move, don't act? It's easy to applaud when an attitude goes viral. It's nice to see someone being publicly exalted. But what about when no one is recording? When the camera is off and the stage is real life? This story shows us that true heroism is not in the spotlight, but in the courage to look aside and recognize the pain of others. How many humble employees, attendants, cleaners, cooks, drivers are out there being diminished, ignored, treated as if they were invisible? And how many of these stories never reach us simply because no one cared to listen? What Oprah did was great, but even greater was the fact that she have seen of having stopped everything to say, "You matter." Because sometimes what saves a life isn't money, fame, or status. It's about being recognized. It's about being truly seen. And perhaps the question that remains is, what about us? Have we seen others, or are we too busy looking at our own reflection? If this story touched your heart in some way, if it made you reflect, remember someone, or even relive something that was kept deep inside, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone you love, with someone who may need to hear this exact message today. Sometimes a simple story can shine a light where there was only darkness. It can remind someone that there is beauty in empathy, strength in kindness, and power in caring. And now I really want to hear from you. Have you ever been through a similar situation? Have you ever been humiliated or seen someone being treated with contempt just for appearing outside the norm? Or what would you do if you witnessed something like this, like Oprah did? Would you have the courage to intervene, to change the course of that story? Right here in the comments, tell us your experience, your pain, your reaction. It could be just a sentence, it could be a rant, but let it be recorded, because every comment is a cry against indifference. Right, I choose empathy if you believe in a fairer world, where everyone is seen with dignity. Let's make this message echo, because together we transform stories, and who knows, the next story to be told will be yours.